Hello everyone, welcome back to KXAN Live. I'm your anchor, Esmeralda Zamora, and we're finally back with our space-based segment and KXAN reporter, Eric Henriksen.
Hey!
Eric, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
We're both fall.
I know, it's very autumn feeling in the building, which I really appreciate.
Yes, even outside.
Even outside. I should go take some dried leaves and toss them all over the floor. Management isn't here this week. We can go wild, see what happens.
Put them in their office.
Yeah, they'll never know.
So we're going to start off today with a conversation about Uranus and how the universe...
I promised I wouldn't laugh. It's a real story, I promise people.
Uranus, the planet, and a story about UT helping NASA discover secret oceans within Uranus's moons, right?
Yes. So Uranus is really far out there. It's one of our furthest planets in our solar system, and reaching it's very challenging. So if we're planning any trips out there, we really need to think about what are we going to see when we get out there? How can we plan these trips out? So UT's developed this model that's looking at... Oh, that's a hand. Oh,
sorry, wrong camera.
That's not Josh. Josh is invisible. They're looking at these. They need to figure out which moons to visit when they get out there. And so the trick to that is, how can we determine what moons are the greatest value? Where is our greatest value in this trip? And the thought process is, okay, let's run this model to determine which moons might have secret oceans beneath the surface. And so this model they developed, what it does is it looks at the wobble of the moon. So as moons orbit a planet, they keep one side's always facing the planet because the orbit is matching the speed of their rotation around the planet. But during that, so it doesn't look like they're spinning, there is like a little wobble that occurs. And this UT model developed at the University of Texas is looking at that wobble and saying, okay, if it wobbles by this much, it might have water in it or it might have ice in it. One of the examples that was provided to us was in a press release was if it wobbles 300 feet, so it's going 300 feet in either direction, right, as it wobbles back and forth during its orbit, that means it has 100 miles of water and then hundreds of feet of ice. And so they can determine the structure of the moon based on how it's actually moving, which is really cool. What this does is when we take these long trips out to Uranus, we can actually determine, hey, let's go here. This is the one that might have water. And we want to find water because water is where you find life. Mm-hmm. Without water, to the best of our knowledge, you can't have life. And so our big mission in the next, I'm going to say century, I'm going to go pretty far out in the next century because it does take a long time to plan these trips, is to find these different objects in our solar system, not on the outside of our solar system, but in our solar system that could sustain life. We've looked a lot at Europa and Jupiter's moons, specifically Europa is kind of the big one we're looking at. We have another mission going out there, the Europa Clipper, which launched last month. That will be visiting Europa. This next mission, it's in the early planning stages. It's set as a priority for NASA to visit Uranus. We've only been there one time before. So UT's helping us determine that mission before we get out there and where we should go. There is, I think it was 28 moons is what I wrote down. Mm-hmm. And 28 moons that orbit Uranus. Some of them are inner moons. Those are the icy ones, and some of them are outer, which they don't really know the composition of, but they're probably asteroids of some sort that are caught in there. You can see these awesome animations from the Voyager 2 mission, which was the last time we visited Uranus. It's been that long, which is a pretty long time ago. Yeah.
And Eric, I saw on your article that you wrote on our website, kxan.com, you had a section that said wobble with ya. And it's not just Uranus's moons that are wobbly.
Right.
It's also ours, right?
Yes, all moons wobble a little bit depending on what they're made of and the orbit and size. It's all physics, right? So if they have like a liquid core, they're going to wobble. Ours is actually pretty solid, but it was at one point magma and lava-y and stuff. It's much more active at this point. I'm pretty sure it's mostly a dead moon or like not very geologically active. When I say dead, I'm talking about geological activity. So there's no core to it. There's no lava. It is shrinking and does have earthquakes or moonquakes. Our moon does, which is kind of cool. So as it shrinks, it kind of crunches and the plates on it kind of crunch and grind against each other, and it's shrinking just because of gravity and alterations to its geology. But it's not as active. It's not an active moon to the best of our knowledge. Whereas some of these, because of the watery core, they are more active. Some like the ones around Jupiter are very active, and they have lava pouring out and magma beneath the surface or something similar, right? And so those are active geologically, and they're going to have a little bit more wobble than ours will. But ours is fairly steady, but it does have some weird eclipse-y, orbity things that happen with it over time.
So NASA is in the planning stages of this specific mission, icy world and its moons. But tell us a little bit about the model that was created here at UT.
Yeah, that model looks really, it's just looking at the numbers of what the wobble looks like. So based on the orbit, how much is it going to wobble, how much ice, how much liquid is going to be in the core. And it does some math that is beyond me. I'm giggling at the name of a planet right now. So some of those things are just beyond me. And this is one of them. But yeah, it determines that size. So that there's several moons. I think there was 3 moons I looked at that they're like pretty sure have water in them. And so they can run this model on it. It was that same model was used on one of Saturn's moons to determine it had water beneath it. So Saturn does, Jupiter does. These icy planets like Neptune and Uranus that are out there way at the edge of our solar system, they think those are the most numerous of all the planets in our solar system, or in the galaxy, in the universe. And if that's the case, if you have this type of planet and then it has these types of moons that could produce and have water on them, well, that means there's more opportunities for life in the universe than maybe we initially anticipated. So more opportunities is always a good thing for life, we hope, unless they're like Independence Day aliens. We want close encounter of the third kind aliens. We don't want Independence Day aliens. But I think most of them are going to be like bacteria and stuff is what we can anticipate to find.
Yeah, I'm sure it would just be tiny life.
Yeah, that sort of thing. But it's at the very least, it's a possibility of life, right? That's kind of even if we don't find life on some of these moons, we find the possibility for liquid water exists there. That means there is a possibility. But it also means is when we do visit, Uranus and Neptune and all these planets way out there in the very distant future, we can get water on these locations. We can create fuel and use them to kind of continue this journey beyond our solar system, beyond the stars themselves, and see what we find over the next 1,000 years. I know I'm talking way long term, but that's kind of what it would be. It would be like a long term, where we're looking at Mars in the next decade or so. Jupiter is much further out than that, and Saturn than Neptune. You work your way down all the planets, right? Pluto eventually, but there's all these different struggles you have to account for: radiation, the temperature, the distance, the time. How do you maintain food when you get out that far? But if they have water on these planets,
that's a start.
That's a start. Yeah.
And I'm hoping it's a little green alien running around and not just a cell or a little microorganism.
I hope it's a cell. It scares me to think. I'm fascinated by the idea that if you look at the math, this is me talking about aliens, if you look at the math, the likelihood of life existing in our universe somewhere else is strong, right? The scary thing is the idea that they're much more technologically advanced than us, and they're little green men who visit us from time to time and go full signs on us. So, there's always that possibility. I'm hoping for like little bacteria and things. That means that, there's stuff out there, but it's not a threat or anything like that.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe the little green aliens are not threats.
I know it's like the sci-fi conversation we're having right now, but that's what makes this conversation always fun. You get to, when you think about space, you get to think
different
parts
of it.
The whole thing's so big. If you think about, I think it's like if our galaxy is the size of a golf ball, the known universe is the size of a football stadium. It's something along those lines. Like that, I saw a metaphor for that the other day. The universe is huge, and it grows. So,
wild that's a little
stuff
scarier
for you.
to think about.
It's a big experiment and just gets larger every year.
Well, we do have your article already published on our website, kxn.com. You can find it on the homepage, and this is an in-depth of what we talked about right now. What can you tell us what is in the article that maybe we didn't get to touch on?
I think we touched on all the major stuff. We have a little more look at what Voyager 2 found on its visit. Some cool images I think are pretty neat that Voyager 2 took when it visited. And there's some, if you want to deep dive more into NASA's experiments and what they're planning, there's a link right there to help guide you along to what's next.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Eric. It was a pleasure to have you back, and we hope to continue these space segments because they're my favorite of all.
I have fun coming in. I get so busy. I have too many plates spinning. I have like 3 more investigations I'm working on right now. But we'll really try to stay as steady as possible. It gets so busy.
Squeeze them in there.
Yeah, it gets busy. We have fun though.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And that's all we have today on the Space. Remember, we'll be back later today with more streams, and we hope that you all join us. Thank you.